Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you very much for joining us at story time around the campfire with Double. We'll just get ourselves ready. I shall light the fire in a moment. It's actually going to be a fire outside. It's a campfire. So we're going to be sitting around the campfire in the field next to the forest where the treehouse is. And there's a lake there. There's a lake. So just imagine we're all walking down now, coming out of the living room area in the magic tree house, right? And you go down the stairs, walking through across the ground under the trees to the gate in the hedge, and make our way down to the water's edge. And I'm going to light the fire on the water's edge. Yep, no problem, JP. Outdoor slippers exist. The Garfield ones aren't so great for wearing outside, but the old man's moccasin style ones are brilliant. And slip-ons as well. Have you got slip-ons with good soles? Right. This is my first time ever doing something like this live. Thankfully, it's only a short story. Let me just light the fire. Did you all bring your warm cocoa and your and the marshmallows and the digestive biscuit so that you can make s'mores? And the 11 bread. 11 bread. Elven bread. I don't know what Elvis bread is. I know what malt loaf is. I love malt loaf. Malt loaf with butter. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let us begin. The Dragon of the North. A prince steals a magical ring from a fairy queen in order to defeat a wicked dragon. This is a vintage fairy tale and may contain violence. We would encourage parents to read beforehand if your child is sensitive to such themes. Very long ago, as old people have told me, there lived a terrible monster who came out of the north and laid waste whole tracts of country, devouring both men and beasts. And this monster was so destructive that it was feared that unless help came, no living creature would be left on the face of the earth. It had a body like an ox, and legs like a frog, 2 short forelegs and 2 long ones behind. And besides that, It had a tail like a serpent, 10 fathoms in length. When it moved, it jumped like a frog, and with every spring, it covered half a mile of ground. Fortunately, its habit was to remain for several years in the same place, and not to move on till the whole neighborhood was eaten up. Nothing could hunt it, because its whole body was covered with scales, which were harder than stone or metal. Its two great eyes shone by night, and even by day, like the brightest lamps, and anyone who had the ill luck to look into those eyes became, as it were, bewitched, and was obliged to rush of his own accord straight into the monster's jaws. In this way, the dragon was able to feed upon both men and beasts without the least trouble to itself, as it needed not to move from the spot where it was lying. All other neighboring kings had offered rich rewards to anyone who should be able to destroy the monster, either by force or by enchantment, and many had tried their luck, but all had miserably failed. Once, a great forest in which the dragon lay had been set on fire. The forest was burnt down, but the fire did not do the monster the least harm. However, there was a tradition amongst the wise men of the country that the dragon might be overcome by one who possessed King Solomon's signet ring, upon which a secret writing was engraved. This inscription would enable anyone who was wise enough to interpret it to find out how the dragon could be destroyed. Only no one knew where the ring was hidden, nor was there any sorcerer or learned man to be found who would be able to explain the inscription. At least the young man, with a good heart and plenty of courage, set out to search for the ring. He took his way towards the sun rising, because he knew that all the wisdom of the old comes from the east. After some years, he met with a famous Eastern magician and asked for his advice in the matter. The magician answered,
"Mortal men have but little wisdom, and I can give you no help. But the birds of the air would be your better guides to you if you could learn their language. And I can help you to understand it if you will stay with me a few days."
The youth thankfully accepted the magician's offer and said, "Hey, listen now, mate, this is real sweet, yeah, but I cannot now offer you any such reward for your kindness, yeah? Because, but should my undertaking succeed, like, I promise you, like, word up, yeah, I promise you, your victory shall be richly repaid." Then the magician brewed a powerful potion out of 9 sorts of herbs, which he had gathered himself, all alone by the moonlight. And he gave the youth 9 spoonfuls of it daily for 3 days, which made him able to understand the language of birds. At parting, the magician said to him,
"If you ever find King Solomon's ring and you get possession of it, right, you come straight back to me, that I might explain the inscription on the ring for you, for there is no one else in the world that can do it."
From that time, the youth never felt lonely as he walked along. He always had company because he understood the language of birds, and in this way he learned many things which mere human knowledge could never have taught him. But time went on, and he heard nothing about the ring. It happened one evening when he was hot and tired with walking, and had sat down under a tree in a forest to eat his supper, that he saw two gaily plumaged birds that were strange to him, sitting on the top of the tree, talking to one another about him.
I know that the wandering fool sat there under a tree, who's come so far without finding what he seeks. He's trying to find King Solomon's lost ring.
The other bird answered,
He'll have to seek help from a witch maiden. She'll doubtless be able to help put him on the right track. If she's not got the ring herself, she knows well enough who has it. But where is he to find the witch maiden?
said the first bird.
She has no settled dwelling, but is here today and gone tomorrow. He may as well try to catch the wind.
The other replied,
I don't know certainly where she is at present, but in 3 nights from now she will come to the spring to wash her face, as she does every month when the moon is full, in order that she may never grow old nor wrinkled, but may always keep the bloom of youth. Well,
said the first bird,
the spring's not far from here. Shall we go and see how it is she does it? Willingly, if you like,
said the other. The youth immediately resolved to follow the birds to the spring. Only 2 things made him uneasy. First, lest he might be asleep when the birds went, and secondly, lest he might lose sight of them, since he had not wings to carry him along so swiftly. He was too tired to keep awake all night, yet his anxiety prevented him from sleeping soundly, and when, with the earliest dawn, he looked up to the treetop, he was glad to see that his feathered companions were still asleep with their heads under their wings. He ate his breakfast and waited until the birds should start, but they did not leave the place all day. They hopped about from one tree to another, looking for food, all day long until the evening, when they went back to their old perch to sleep. The next day the same thing happened. But on the 3rd morning, one bird said to the other,
today we must go to the spring to see the witch maiden wash her face.
They remained on the tree until noon, and then they flew away and went towards the south. The young man's heart beat with anxiety lest he should lose sight of his guides, but he managed to keep the birds in view until they again perched upon a tree. The young man after them until he was quite exhausted and out of breath, and after 3 short rests, the birds at length reached a small open space in the forest, on the edge of which they placed themselves on top of a high tree. When the youth had overtaken him, he saw that there was a clear spring in the midst of the space. He sat down at the foot of the tree upon which the birds were perched and listened attentively to what they were saying to each other.
The sun is not yet down yet,
said the first bird.
we must wait yet a while till the moon rises and the witch maiden comes up from the spring. Do you think she will see that young man sitting under a tree? Nothing is likely to escape her eyes. Certainly not a young man,
said the other bird.
Will the youth have the sense not to let himself be caught up in her toils? We will wait,
said the first bird,
and see how they get on together.
The evening light had quite faded, and the full moon was already shining down upon the forest when the young man heard a slight rustling sound. After a few moments, there came out of the forest a maiden, gliding over the grass so lightly that her feet seemed scarcely to touch the ground, and stood beside the spring. The youth could not turn his eyes away from the maiden, for he had never seen in his life a woman so beautiful. Without seeming to notice anything, she went to the spring, looked up to the full moon, then knelt down and bathed her face 9 times, then looked up to the moon again and walked 9 times around the well. As she walked, she strummed her guitar and sang this song.
Full moon fades with light unshaded. Let my beauty never be faded. Let my cheek never grow pale. While the moon is waning nightly, may the maiden bloom more brightly. May your freshness never fail.
Then she dried her face with her long hair and was about to go away when her eyes suddenly fell upon the spot where the young man was sitting, and she turned towards the tree. The youth rose and stood waiting. Then the maiden said,
You ought to have a heavy punishment because you have presumed to watch my secret doings in the moonlight. But I will forgive you this time, because you are a stranger and know no better. But you must tell me truly who you are, and how you came to this place where no mortal has ever set foot before.
The youth answered humbly, Hey, listen, lover, right, listen, I'm real sorry, forgive me, beautiful maiden. If I have unintentionally offended you, I chanced to come here after the long wandering, and I found a good place to sleep under this tree, right? And then at your coming, I did not know what to do, but I just stayed there, right? I stayed there because I thought that my silent watching could not offend you, yeah? The maiden answered kindly,
Come and spend this night with us. You will sleep better on a pillow than on damp grass.
The youth hesitated for a little, but presently he heard the birds saying from the top of a tree,
Go where she calls you, but take care to give no blood, or you will sell your soul.
So the youth went with her, and soon they reached the beautiful garden, where stood a splendid house, which glittered in the moonlight as if it was built out of gold and silver. When the youth entered, he found many splendid chambers, each one finer than the last. Hundreds of tapers burnt upon golden candlesticks and shed a light like the brightest day. At last they reached the chamber where a table was spread with the most costly dishes. At the table were placed 2 chairs, one of silver, the other of gold. The maiden seated herself upon the golden chair and offered the silver one to her companion. They were served by maidens dressed in white, whose feet made no sound as they moved about, and not a word was spoken during the meal. Afterwards, the youth and the witch maiden conversed pleasantly together, until a woman dressed in red came in to remind them that it was bedtime. The youth was now shown into another room, containing a silken bed with down cushions, where he slept delightfully. Yet he seemed to remember a voice near his bed which repeated to him,
Remember, give no blood.
The next morning, the maiden asked him whether he should not like to stay with her always in this beautiful place. And as he did not answer her immediately, she continued,
You see how I always remain young and beautiful, and I am under no one's orders, but can do just what I like, so that I have never thought of marrying before. But from the moment I saw you, I took a fancy to you. So if you agree, we might be married and might live together like princes, because I have great riches.
The youth could not but be tempted with the beautiful maiden's offer, but he remembered how the birds had called her the witch, and their warnings always surrounded his ears. Therefore, he answered cautiously, "Hey, listen, right? Don't don't be angry, sweetie. My dear maiden, gosh, okay, don't be angry. If I do not decide immediately on this very important matter, please just give me a few days, right? Cause you're talking about marriage forever, like, yeah. So give me a few days to consider before we can come to some kind of understanding, yeah."
Why not?
Answered the maiden.
Take some weeks to consider if you like, and take counsel with your own heart.
And to make the time pass pleasantly, she took the youth over every part of her beautiful dwelling and showed him all her splendid treasures. But these treasures were all produced by enchantment, for the maiden could make anything she wished appear by the help of King Solomon's signet ring. Only one of these things remained fixed. Only none of these things remained fixed. They passed away like the wind without leaving a trace. But the youth did not know this. He thought they were all real. One day, the maiden took him into a secret chamber where a little gold box was standing on a silver table. Pointing to the box, she said,
Here is my greatest treasure, whose like is not to be found in the whole world. It is a precious gold ring. When you marry me, I will give you this ring as a marriage gift, and it will make you the happiest of all mortal men. But in order that our love may last forever, you must give me the ring. Give for me the ring. 3 drops of blood from the little finger of your left hand.
When the youth heard these words, a cold shudder ran over him, for he remembered that his soul was at stake. He was cunning enough, however, to conceal his feelings and to make no direct answer. But he only asked the maiden, as if carelessly, what was remarkable about the ring. She answered,
No mortal is able to entirely understand the power of this ring, because no one thoroughly understands the secret signs engraved upon it. But even with my half knowledge, I can work great wonders. If I put the ring on the little finger of my left hand, then I can fly like a bird through the air wherever I wish to go. And if I put it on the third finger of my left hand, I am invisible. And if I put the ring on the middle finger of my left hand, then neither fire nor water nor any sharp weapon can hurt me. And if I put it on the fourth finger of my left hand, then I can, with its help, produce whatever I wish. I can, in a single moment, build houses or anything I desire,
For as long as I wear the ring on the thumb of my left hand, that hand is so strong that it can break down rocks and walls. Besides these, the ring has other secrets which, as I said, no one can understand. No doubt it contains secrets of great importance. The ring formerly belonged to King Solomon, the wisest of kings, during whose reign the wisest men lived. But it is not known whether this ring was ever made by mortal hands. It is supposed to be that an angel gave it to the wise king. When the youth heard all this, he determined to try and get possession of the ring, though he did not quite believe in all its wonderful gifts. He wished the maiden would have let him have it in his hand, but he did not quite like to ask her to do so, and after a while she put it back into the box. A few days after, they were again speaking of the magic ring, and the youth said, "Hey, right, I don't think that it's possible that that ring can have all the power that you say that it's got, yeah?" Then the maiden opened the box and took the ring out, and it glittered as if she held it like the clearest sunbeam. She put it on the middle finger of her left hand and told the youth to take a knife and try as hard as he could to cut her with it, for he would not be able to hurt her. He was unwilling at first, but the maiden insisted. Then he tried, at first only in play, and then seriously, to strike her with the knife, but an invisible wall of iron seemed to be between them, and the maiden stood before him laughing and unhurt. Then she put the ring on her third finger, and in an instant she had vanished from his eyes. Presently she was behind him again, and laughing, and holding the ring between her fingers. "Hey, mate, do let me have a go on that, yeah?" said the youth. "Whether I can do these wonderful things." The maiden suspected no treachery, gave him the magic ring. The youth pretended to have forgotten what to do, and asked what finger he must put the ring on so that no sharp weapon can hurt him. "On the middle finger of your left hand," the maiden answered, laughing. She took the knife and tried to strike the youth, and even tried to cut him, but found it impossible. Then he asked the maiden to show him how to split stones and rocks with the help of the ring. So she led him into a courtyard where stood a great boulder stone. "Now," she said, "put the ring on the thumb of your left hand, and you will see how strong that hand has become." The youth did so, and found to his astonishment that with a single blow of his fist, the stone flew into 1,000 pieces. Then the youth bethought him that he who does not use his luck when he has it is a fool, and that this was a chance which once lost might never return. So while they stood there laughing at the shattered stone, he placed the ring, as if in play, upon the third finger of his left hand. "Now," said the maiden, "you are invisible to me until you take the ring off again." But the youth had no mind to do that. On the contrary, he went farther off, then put the ring on the little finger of his left hand, and soared into the air like a bird. When the maiden saw him flying away, she thought at first that he was still in play, and cried, "Come back, friend, for now you see I have told you the truth." But the young man never came back. Then the maiden saw that she was deceived, and bitterly repented that she had ever trusted him with the ring. The young man never halted in his flight until he reached the dwelling of the wise magician who had taught him the speech of birds. The magician was delighted to find that his search had been successful and at once set to work to interpret the secret signs engraved upon the ring. But it took him 7 weeks to make them out clearly. Then he gave the youth the following instructions how to overcome the dragon of the north.
You must have an iron cast horse, which must have little wheels under each foot. You must be armed with a spear 2 fathoms long, which you will be able to wield by the means of the magic ring upon your left thumb. The spear must be as thick as the middle as a large tree. As thick in the middle as a large tree is what I'm saying. And both its ends must be sharp. In the middle of the spear, you must have 2 strong chains, 10 fathoms apart.
As soon as the dragon had made himself fast to the spear,
which you must thrust through his jaws, you must spring quickly from the iron horse and fasten the ends of the chain firmly to the ground with the iron stakes, so that he cannot get away from them. After 2 or 3 days, the monster's strength will be so far exhausted that you will be able to come near him. Then you can put Solomon's ring on your left thumb and give him the finishing stroke. But keep the ring on your 3rd finger until you have come close to him, so the monster cannot see you, unless he might strike you dead with his long tail. But when all is done, take care you do not lose the ring, and that no one takes it from you by cunning.
the young man thanked the magician for his directions and promised, should they succeed, to reward him. But the magician answered,
"Hey, I've profited so much from the wisdom the ring has brought me, I desire no other reward."
And they parted, and the youth quickly flew home through the air. After remaining in his home for several weeks, he heard people say that the terrible dragon of the north was not far off and might shortly be expected in the country. The king announced publicly that he would give his daughter in marriage, as well as a large part of his kingdom, to whosoever should free the country from the monster. The youth then went to the king and told him that he had good hopes for subduing the dragon, if the king would grant him all he desired for the purpose. The king willingly agreed, and the iron horse, great spear, and the chains were all prepared as the youth requested. When it was all finally ready, it was found that the iron horse was so heavy that 100 men could not move it from the spot. So the youth found there was nothing for it but to move it with his own strength by means of the magic ring. The dragon was now so near that in a couple of springs he would be over the frontier. The youth now began to consider how he should act, for if he had to push the iron horse from behind him, he could not ride upon it, as the sorcerer had said he must, but a raven unexpectedly gave him this advice.
Ride upon a horse and push the spear to the ground, as if you were pushing off a boat from the land.
The youth did so, and found that in this way he could easily move forwards. The dragon had his monstrous jaws wide open, all ready for his expected prey. A few paces nearer, man and horse would have been swallowed up by them. The youth trembled with horror, and his blood ran cold, yet he did not lose his courage. But, holding the iron spear upright in his hand, he brought it down with all his might, right through the monster's lower jaw. Quick as lightning, he sprang from his horse before the dragon had time to shut his mouth. a fearful clap like thunder, which could be heard for miles. When the youth turned around, he saw the point of the spear sticking up high above the dragon's upper jaw, and knew that the other end must be fastened firmly to the ground. But the dragon had gotten his teeth fixed in the iron horse, which was now useless. The youth now hastened to fasten down the chains to the ground by means of the enormous iron pegs which he had provided. The death struggle of the monster lasted 3 days and 3 nights. In his writhing, he beat his tail so violently against the ground that at 10 miles distance the earth trembled as if it were an earthquake. When he at length lost power to move his tail, the youth, with the help of the ring, took up a stone which 20 ordinary men could not have moved, and beat the dragon so hard about the head with it that very soon the monster lay lifeless before him. You can fancy how great the applause. And the rejoicing when the news had spread abroad that the terrible monster was dead. His conqueror was received into the city with as much pomp as if he had been the mightiest of kings. The old king did not need to urge his daughter to marry the slayer of the dragon. He found her already willing to bestow her hand upon this hero, who had done all alone what whole armies had tried in vain to do. In a few days, a magnificent wedding was celebrated, at which the rejoicings lasted 4 whole weeks. For all the neighboring kings had met together to thank the man who had freed their world from their common enemy. But everyone forgot, amid the general joy, that they ought to have buried the dragon's monstrous body, for it began now to have such a bad smell that no one could live in the neighborhood. And before long, the whole air was poisoned, and a pestilence broke out, which destroyed many hundreds of people. In this distress, King's son-in-law resolved to seek help once more from the Eastern magician, to whom he at once travelled through the air like a bird by the help of the ring. But there is a proverb which says that ill-gotten gains never prosper, and the prince found that the stolen ring brought him ill luck after all. The witch maiden had never rested night nor day until she had found out where the ring was. As soon as she had discovered by means of magical arts that the prince, in the form of a bird, was on his way to the Eastern magician, she changed herself into an eagle and watched in the air until the bird she was waiting for came in sight, for she knew him at once by the ring which hung around his neck by a ribbon. Then the eagle pounced upon the bird, and the moment she seized him in her talons, she tore the ring from his neck, before the man in the bird's shape had the time to prevent her. Then the eagle flew down to the earth with her prey, and the two stood face to face once more in human form.
"Now, villain, you are in my power,"
cried the witch maiden.
"I favoured you with my love, and you repaid me with treachery and theft. You stole my most precious jewel from me, and do you expect to live happily as the king's son-in-law? Now the tables are turned, and you are in my power, and I will be revenged on you for all your crimes."
Oh shit, man! Like, forgive me, yeah, forgive me. I'm so sorry," cried the prince. "I know too well how deeply I've wronged you, and most heartily I do repent it." The maiden answered, "Your prayers and your repentance come too late, and if I were to spare you, everyone would think me a fool. You have doubly wronged me. First you scorned my love, and then you stole my ring. Now you will bear the punishment." With these words, she put the ring upon her left thumb, lifted the young man with one hand, and walked away with him under her arm. This time, she did not take him to a splendid place, but to a cave in a rock, a deep cave. There were chains hanging from the rock, from the wall. The maiden now chained the young man's hands and feet so they could not escape. Then she said in an angry voice, "Here you shall remain chained up until you die. I will bring you every day enough food to prevent you dying of hunger, but you need never hope for freedom any more." And with these words, she left him. The old king and his daughter waited anxiously for many weeks for the prince's return, but no news of him arrived. The king's daughter often dreamed that her husband was going through some great suffering. She therefore begged her father to summon all the enchanters and magicians that they might try to find where the prince was and how he could be set free. But the magicians, with all their arts, could find nothing except that he was still living and undergoing great suffering, but none could tell where he was to be found. At last, the celebrated magician from Finland, who was brought before the king, who had found out that the king's son-in-law was imprisoned by the East, not by men, but by some more powerful being. The king now sent messengers to the East to look for his son-in-law, and they, by luck, met a man, the old magician, who had interpreted the signs on King Solomon's ring, and thus was possessed of more wisdom than anyone else in the world. The magician soon found out what he wished to know and pointed to the place where the prince was imprisoned.
He's kept there by an enchantment, innit? And he cannot be set free without my help. I will therefore go with you myself.
So they set out quickly, guided by birds, and after some days came to the cave where the unfortunate prince had been chained up for nearly 7 years. He recognized the magician immediately, but the old man did not know him. He had grown so thin. However, he undid the chains by the help of magic, and he took care of the prince until he recovered and became strong enough to travel. When he reached home, he found out that the old king had died that morning, so that he was now raised to the throne. And now, after his long suffering, came prosperity, which lasted to the end of his life. But he never got back the magic ring, nor has it ever been seen by mortal eyes. Now, if you had been the prince, would you not rather have stayed with the pretty witch maiden? Wow, there we go. Did I do all right there, Ross? That was your story. Well, not your story, but you suggested that story. So did I? Did it sound like you thought it would?
Hang on, let me just shut all this nature up. Oi, you out there, shut up.
Do you know the funny thing is I can still hear those bloody birds because I've had that playing most of the day. It's very relaxing. It's very relaxing, extremely relaxing. It's felt absolutely fantastic. So I quite enjoyed that. That was fun. I do understand that I was not reading to a classroom of 10-year-olds. I do understand that. But yeah, that was cool, man. I enjoyed that. The next story I'm going to start is a bit more adult. And I happen to have a paperback. I haven't slept yet since yesterday. A paperback copy of said book. Would you like to see the book? It's called The Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch. And all I can remember about this book is that it made me laugh. Oh my God, it made me laugh a lot. It's The Thorn of Comort is said to be an unbeatable swordsman, a master thief, a friend to the poor, a ghost that walks through walls. Slightly built and barely competent with a sword, Loch Lamora is, much to his annoyance, the fabled Thorn. And while Loch does indeed steal from the rich, who should be worth stealing from, the poor never see a penny. All of Loch's gains are strictly for himself and his tight-knit band of thieves, the gentlemen bastards. The capricious, colourful underworld of the ancient city of Comort is the only home they've ever known. But now a clandestine war is threatening to tear it apart. Caught up in a murderous game, Loch and his fathers are suddenly struggling to stay alive. It's a great swashbuckling yarn of a novel, said Richard Morgan.
Yeah, that's hugely enjoyable. It's rollicking blast. It's rollicking blast of solid fun, compulsive reading.
That's Hal Duncan. And
remarkable, stylish debut.
Actually, that's completely because a remarkably stylish debut from the Times. Anyway, I think I would like to read this book. It's not going to be easy because my eyesight has actually got quite bad. And if you take a look, this book is actually in extremely bad condition. But if you take a look, it's very small. It's very small. It's very small writing, very small. So I'm going to have to hold it at arm's length from my head, which is all new to me because 2 years ago I never had to fucking do that. But now apparently I do. So the next story will be about the prologue, The Boy Who Stole Too Much. At the height of the long wet summer of the 77th year of Sendavani, the thief maker of Camor paid a sudden and unannounced visit to the eyeless priest at the temple of Perilandro, desperately hoping to sell him the Lamora boy. So that's a little taster of the next story that's going to be geared more towards the older people in the audience. But if you do have any youngsters that you think would enjoy the story that I read, please be my guest and play it to them. I spent a couple of hours trying to prepare it, and and I've got my old soundboard ready with the sound effects, and I forgot to upload the one that has the cave. I was looking for it when it went into the bloody cave, and I couldn't find it. All I could find was a fucking helicopter or a gunshot. So that was good fun, man. I really enjoyed that. And how long was I going? Oh, look at that. 1 hour, almost exactly 1 hour. And we've got 11 people in the room. That is quality. I love that. In all seriousness, I've been awake since yesterday. After the 4.5 hour live stream yesterday, myself and Sarah were talking until about 5:30 GMT time, my time, in the morning. And I tried to go to sleep and I couldn't because I was still buzzing off the energy that I got from the live stream, from the entire day. The entire day, from the moment I woke up, that was horrible. And it just turned over the day, the energy changed and turned. And by the end of the day, I was buzzing. And I'm feeling extremely grounded and extremely positive and good and awesome and full of love, absolutely full of love, especially for this young lady here, Sarah. Absolutely beautiful, wonderful, living woman, actual living woman, not person, not human, not individual, living woman. She's an angel incarnate on this earth. But because of the fact that I've had no sleep, I'm definitely not fit for the camera. And I'm definitely considering just crashing out now, because that was quite a lot of energy that went into that. I thought it was only going to take half an hour. I think I read it quite slowly. It's because the audio book that's up on the bloody thing is only 25 minutes long. And I thought, fucking hell. So, I mean, bloody hell, how quickly did they read that? They must have just powered through it to do it in less than half the time it took me. Anyways. I'm off, ski peeps. Thank you very much for being here. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you think anybody else will enjoy it, as I said, please, please, please forward it on. So, send it to whoever you think might like it. If you've noticed the thing, the ticker scroll along the bottom, a decision has been made. So long as I can get a working visa and everything, I'm going to move to Oregon. One way or another, I am going to move to Oregon and spend the next 5 to 10 years in Oregon building the Magic Treehouse, the very first edition, the first launch. And it will be the HQ mothership of all the satellite greenhouses, treehouses, green treehouses, tree greenhouses. I'm tired. Shut up. The Magic Treehouses, and we will cover this entire Earth. Every continent will have a Magic Treehouse. If you haven't already subbed to my channel, please sub to it. If you haven't already subbed to Sarah's channel, please sub to it. If you haven't already subbed to Really Roxanne's channel, please sub to it. All links are in the description. Please like and share. You don't have to actually share it. All you got to do is press copy, and that registers it as a share. So if you just go in, share, copy, and then it registers it as a share. And share it if you've got somebody you think, like I said, if you've got somebody that you think would like it. What else? Love you all. You're all awesome. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for not really coming in the chat room, but do you know, I was reading slowly because I am having a lot of difficulty reading, and I'd actually zoomed it up quite big, but because of the backlight of the monitor, the words were dancing. So a couple of times when I really paused, it's because I was trying to get the fucking words to stay still while I read them. And no, I'm not drunk. It's purely sleep deprivation. It's such an awesome, it's better than drugs. You know that. Sleep deprivation is actually a much more satisfying the hallucinations, everything. It's subtle. It's very subtle, but it's very, very definite and very cool and very natural. You don't have to feel guilty for it, and you won't feel bad for it the next day. You just might feel a bit tired. But I've eaten a lot since yesterday. I've eaten a lot of meat. I've got to say, I have eaten a lot of meat, and I feel pretty good. So I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for the Lies of Loch Lamora.
In this life what do you think you've learned?
Absolutely nothing. Well, I've tried to learn, but I calculate not a lot really. I've learned that you must treat people properly, and that you must proceed in a certain way, and you must try and have a vibe of how to sort of enjoy situations. So I've learned just to, don't get miserable or fight the misery with some intelligence. This is like the most difficult area of the whole malarkey, really. It's hard to turn something around when it's going, and it's not something that you can learn well, as far as I can see, it's something that comes to you with a bit of luck and a bit of instinct, yeah? But therefore it's not something you can ever bank on. I'm not smart enough to figure out what the hell it is or how it works at all, That's why I treat it like hoodoo, 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 hoodoo. I do find I still have a talent to cause a bit of, stir up a little bit of confusion, yeah? But I'll do what I can to create as much chaos as I possibly can. But my chaos is always well-natured, or has a positive goal at the end. When I start causing chaos in a situation, it's because the situation really needed to be changed, for example, or something is going to happen that I thought would be a good idea. And 9 times out of 10, I'm on it, I must say. But hopefully, that hasn't unjinxed. That hasn't unjinxed. That hasn't unjinxed. That hasn't